Welcome to the Odd Life Podcast. That's AWED, which stands for Awake, Well, and Empowered. We're here to have conversations to inspire women of all ages to live odd AF. So thank you for joining me. Let's dig in. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. I'm your host, Hallie. Welcome to another episode of The Odd Life. And do I have one for you? Sarah Schmidt is my guest today. And Sarah is the host of the podcast called Wholey Schmidt. I love that. I found Sarah through Libby Delana. Libby Delana, if you recall, was a podcast guest of mine a few episodes ago. And Libby was a guest on Sarah's podcast around the same time. And so when I saw it on social media that she was a guest someplace else, and I saw this other podcast, I knew I had to look into it. Well, number one, I love the name of the podcast, Wholey Schmidt, but I ended up downloading a few episodes for my road trip home from Colorado, and I was not disappointed. I want to read to you really quick her bio. So Sarah is a woman with no shortage of these life moments, these Wholey Schmidt moments. From growing up in a small Catholic town in Wisconsin with a mom who spent 12 years in a convent, to discovering she was in love with a woman, to getting diagnosed with cancer, to adopting a son with sickle cell disease, to having her first natural birth at 44, to navigating a second divorce and beyond. Many might experience some of these events in their lifetime, but few have experienced them all in one. At 52, which I think she's 53 now, Sarah is discovering her purpose and feeling more alive than ever. Her voice resonates with all ages, and her message is clear. Life only continues to get better. Each day holds a new opportunity to create the life you want. Don't let age be anything more than a number. Sarah holds a PhD in clinical psychology, a master's in pastoral counseling, and a health coach certification. She's also an investor in some of today's top wellness brands and a passionate philanthropist, supporting initiatives such as the Basic Needs Giving Partnership, Kenya Works, Connections for the Homeless, Revolution Workshop, and Anne and Robert H. Lurie Children's Hospital of Chicago Foundation, among others. So, you guys, this woman, she is beyond amazing and such a joy to talk to. And I cannot wait for you to hear our conversation. I hope that you love it. And if you do, please consider sharing it wherever you hang out on social media, when you're walking with a friend. Please let them know about Sarah because she's got a podcast called Wholey Schmidt. And it's so great. You're going to hear a snippet of her story from our chat today, but then you can go to her podcast and really get the details. So good. This is my conversation with Sarah Schmidt of the Wholey Schmidt podcast. Enjoy. Well, Sarah, thank you so much for being here. I am so excited to talk to you. I was driving home from Colorado and I went down the rabbit hole and listened to your podcast. And you basically, from the beginning, telling your story, you just captured me with all of it. And I'm crying listening to you talk and telling your story. I knew I had to have you on the podcast because I knew that your story was really important to share with my guests. So I'm so grateful for you for saying yes. So thank you.
Well, I'm really grateful you asked. I think it's such a compliment to be asked, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
To be invited, huge. Right? It's sort of like that, seventh grade. Am I going to get picked? Let's not kid ourselves. It feels really great to be picked.
And that's why this whole podcast is here, because I want other women to hear these kind of stories. And it's important to see what lives that women are leading and how they're leading them and the lessons we can learn from each other. So important. So let's get into it. First off, let's start at the beginning, your cancer story. That's where the very beginning of your podcast started as well, as talking about your cancer. And I think it's so incredible what you went through and how you went through it more than anything. Mm-hmm. I mean, everyone goes through hard things, but how you went through it, I think, is the bigger part of the story. Do you mind sharing a little bit about like when you found out you had cancer and how you navigated that as a young person?
Yeah. I was 20 years old. I was a junior at Northwestern University. I was an RA. Resident assistant living in the fourth floor of a dorm in charge of a floor. And I had these 2 lymph nodes in my neck right here were just getting bigger and bigger for months. I kept going back to the student health center. That fall, I was pretty sick. I think I got pneumonia. I got mono, strep. And that wasn't typical for me. I wasn't a kid who got sick a lot. Mm-hmm. And the student health center, obviously they were good at mono. They didn't know what to make of it. And they kept kind of thinking those lymph nodes were related to the mono, but they kept getting bigger and bigger. And probably the third or fourth time I went back in December, it was December 15th that year of 1992. There happened to be a surgeon, I guess, doing rounds or something in the student health center. And they pulled him into the room and he took a look at me and I think he knew because he said to me, I want you in my operating room tomorrow morning. 7 a.m. So that next morning was the 16th of December, and it was my last day in the dorms before I went home for winter break. My friend Jen drove me to that appointment. He cut me open, numbed me up, cut me open right here. I mean, this tattoo covers that scar now.
Oh, yeah. What is it a tattoo of now? What is it? Flowers?
Well, this is a tattoo of dogwoods that originates in my my shoulder blade, and it blooms up over my shoulder into the scar.
I love it.
I just had that done in January or February in LA by an amazing tattoo artist, Dr. Wu. I got the opportunity to work with him. And this is I have one more cancer scar I will tattoo with him again, but this was a big one. And I waited a long time to do it because I thought it was going to be so painful.
Yeah.
That's another story. But yeah, he biopsied those lymph nodes, stitched me back up, and then told me to wait in the waiting room and came to get me. And he said, we didn't get enough. We need more. At that point, I know he knew the kind of cancer I had just spread diffusely through the node, and he knew he was going to need the whole node. So they cut me back open, and this time cut a whole bunch of nerves in there too to remove 2 golf ball sized lymph nodes and send them off for biopsy. I went from Chicago through Milwaukee to pick up my brother. He was at Marquette University. We stopped for lunch while my neck just continued to swell and swell and swell from the surgery. Drove all the way up to my hometown in Northeast Wisconsin. And at 5:00 that night, the phone rang, the one on the wall in the kitchen, with the cord.
Yes.
And I pulled that cord as far as I could into the laundry room and closed the door and leaned on my elbows on the ironing board, looking at my mom's sewing machine. It's like I can just visualize the whole room. I almost feel like I know what I was wearing.
Yep.
And he said to me, you have cancer. You have Hodgkin's disease. Do you have any questions? And I just said, no, I'm good. I didn't know what was I supposed to say, right?
At 20, you're like,
At 20, yeah. And hung up the phone, went back into the kitchen and said, that was the surgeon. My parents were there. My dad was sitting at the kitchen table. My mom was behind the kitchen counter making dinner. And I said, I have Hodgkin's disease. I think it's cancer. And they were like, okay, And I have a first cousin who I'm very close to, and I had spent a lot of time at their house my junior and senior year of college. He and his wife were just super close to me, and he was an internist. I said, I think I'm going to call Dave. I called them. I can tell you what the phone number is. I remember. I know their landline.
Yep.
Which they probably don't have anymore. I drove over to their house. Dave had his medical textbooks out on the kitchen table, and we sat there for, I don't know, a long time, a couple hours. And I learned what Hodgkin's disease was. And Dave made some phone calls to some colleagues. And the next morning, I was in an oncologist's office in Appleton, Wisconsin, to try to figure out how we were going to not treat it, but stage it. The first step in cancer treatment is to figure out where it is. And so I spent my Christmas break, my holiday break, doctor's appointments every day. Well, they tried to figure out where this Hodgkin's disease was in my body. It all culminated with major surgery to remove my spleen and sample lymph nodes from my whole chest and abdomen. And I still have that scar, and it runs from the center of me to my belly button. And it is also tattooed with a beautiful tree of life and 4 birds, one for each of my children. And there's a diamond pierced in my belly button at the base of that tree now, which in my mind is a real symbol of the root of me, the strength of that tree and rooted in the earth. I went back to college a few days after that surgery. I decided I would do my cancer treatment back in Evanston, Illinois at the Kellogg Cancer Care Center. I made that choice because my family had a really hard time with my cancer diagnosis. They weren't real good at talking about hard things.
Yeah.
And I knew quickly that this was really hard for them. And I didn't want to be a hard thing in their lives. I had been a very independent, self-sufficient kid from the time I was very small. Yep. My mom jokes that I was walking at 9 months and potty trained myself at 10. That's weird. Okay.
Oh my gosh.
Any mothers who are listening are going to know that that's just really weird.
Yeah. That's crazy.
When I was in kindergarten, my dad built a stool so that I could reach the buttons on the backside of the washing machine so I could do laundry, and I learned how to iron his handkerchiefs. I decided I was going to take care of this myself, and I wasn't going to be a burden to them. I really felt strongly that their silence around what was going on for me was an indication that it was too much for them, and I never wanted to be too much. I had spent a lot of time in my life trying to be just the right of everything, and a really good kid. So I went through cancer treatment alone. I did 7 weeks of radiation. There were a lot of complications related to that. I'm really fortunate I didn't have to go through chemotherapy. And sometime in March 1993, they told me I was cancer-free. And then 5 years later, they told me I was cured and I was supposed to get on with my life. That's the story of me having cancer. But I think for me, the real story is how one learns to live a full life as a whole human with this very deep awareness of their own mortality. And I think we all have opportunities in our lives to learn and get in touch with our mortality.
Sure.
Rarely does that happen when you're 20. And so for a long time, I lived like I was dying.
I can imagine. Well, kudos to you for doing that, because I think, like you said, at that age, I mean, I hate to say this, but almost a gift to get it that early so that you can have that viewpoint for the rest of your life, where some people don't get that diagnosis until older in life. And then they realize, oh shit, I wasted all this time.
I think I want to challenge you because everything that happens in your life, you have a chance to see it as a gift. And yes, that is true. There is not a good time to get cancer.
Yeah, never.
There isn't.
Right.
Okay.
You're right.
So when you get it when you're 20, you have a chance to have some perspective, but it destroyed my 20s. It took my 20s away from me. And then you get it when you're 40, you're in the middle of parenting and it robs you of years.
Yes.
And if you get it when you're 60, if you get it when you're 80, I was told over and over again that I was lucky, right? I got the lucky cancer because it was treatable. The stage it was 2B, and that was lucky because I didn't have to have chemotherapy. I was lucky because I had treatment in Chicago. I was lucky because I only needed 7 weeks of radiation. And that was a real mindfuck.
I bet.
Because I think to tell a person that anything like that is luck, especially when you're 20 and your hypothetical reasoning skills haven't yet really solidified in your frontal lobe, really, really created some deep challenges for me, that every time something bad happened, hard happened, I thought I was supposed to feel good about it. I wasn't given the chance to feel the feels of what I was going through. I didn't get to sit in the hard. I didn't get to sit in the disappointment. I didn't get to sit in the resentment. I didn't get to sit in the anger. I didn't get to be mad at my body. I didn't get to be pissed at my parents. I didn't get to be furious at the medical system for not knowing what to do with a 20-year-old who has cancer and treating me like I was some kind of foreign object in the room. I have really spent, I'm really in a good place with all of this now, but it took me decades to get to a place where I could stop living as a survivor. And I thought that was a good thing, to identify myself as a survivor, but
Sure.
I lived as if cancer was still in me, which, technically it is. We're all walking around with cancer cells in our bodies, just waiting for them to activate. Right. But I lived like that. I wasn't thriving. I was a cancer survivor.
Yeah.
I was limited.
So it's like dragging something with you all the time. You never could actually quite,
Perfect analogy. 50-pound boulder chained to my neck.
Yeah.
Quite literally, actually, chained to my neck.
That's right.
Because radiation permanently changes the texture of your muscle fibers. It tightens them. It creates a lot of stiffness. They don't bend. They don't flex. They don't give. They don't stretch like all the other healthy fibers in your body would.
Yeah.
And so everyone always talks about what a great neck I have, but it really is from the tension created and the stress on my upper body. And it can't be undone. And then I didn't know how to talk about the experience. I didn't know how to emote about it. I was just really stunted and stuck as a 20-year-old for a long time with this literal lump in my throat that I didn't know what to do with. I couldn't voice it. And so instead of speaking and letting it go, I just left it there. And I created this enormous separation between my head and my heart, really disembodied. because being in my body was so painful. It was so scary. And, there is gift in that, but it was not a gift.
I was going to ask you about as far as the impact of having that, like you said, you got perspective and living your everyday like you're dying, but the lack of being able to emote that and deal with that. We all know when we store things in our body, it continues to, it's like festering inside the body. Did that impact relationships, your career? Like, how else did that impact the rest of your life as you went forward? Like, did you find that you were struggling in certain parts of your life because of maybe that was still sitting there and struggling to let that out?
Yeah. I mean, I think it impacted everything. I mean, I've come to see that, like, being truly embodied, right? Living our lives really connected to our physical selves and feeling at home in our skin is a gift. It is like the greatest thing that could happen for us. And that's how we're born. We're born that way. I mean, you've ever see a baby discover their hands and their feet and how excited they are to find them, right?
Yeah.
Like lit up, like, oh my God, what is this? And then start sucking on their toes, right? That was profoundly impacted for me in my 20s at a kind of a critical time when you're supposed to be dating and exploring and spreading your wings and trying new things. And I was afraid. I was just gripped by fear, or I was allowing fear to grip me. I really was. And it affected all kinds of things. It affected my career choices after college. I graduated on time from Northwestern, but I was afraid to leave Evanston, Illinois, because my doctors were there and I thought they were the ones keeping me alive. Those every couple month checkups. So I didn't leave. I stayed and I picked a job close by. Now, it was a great job. I learned a lot, and I met the woman I fell in love with and was with for 18 years and adopted children with. And so what a great thing. But why was I so quick to fall so deeply in love? Because I was looking for safety. I was trying to find something I could hold on to that felt permanent. I was in a committed relationship at the age of 23. That's not bad. It just is. And that's, is that a consequence of my cancer? Well, sure. I think it really is. I mean, it affected all of my choices. And I now see how it is empowering me. It still affects my choices. It affects the way I take care of my body, the way I love this physical body that I'm in, which now, rather than being afraid I'm going to die and having that be something that just kind of controls me and is this propeller in me, it's more of a inspiration. Like, God damn, let's just take good care of this thing because it survived a lot of things and it's thriving now and I feel beautiful in it. And I'm sure it affects nearly everything and sometimes nothing at all. It becomes sort of like if you said, tell me how motherhood affects your daily life. Sort of the same thing.
Yeah.
I mean, those big moments, those big things that happen to us, it permeate our being.
Yeah. It's part of your fiber at that point. Yeah. So when was the moment where you went from being afraid, and what happened to make you then look at that as I'm now empowered by this and what I've gone through? Was there something that happened, or just over time, or what was it that made you flip that switch? Because I think a lot of women do get stuck in that fear cycle. And there's a moment, a lot of times people have something that happens where they're like, I'm done. I'm no longer living this way. Was there something like that for you, or just over time?
Yeah. My then partner and I had been together for 15 years and had adopted 3 children and fought like vehemently for gay marriage. Illinois, our state, got civil unions, and we decided we wanted to get married. And you're planning a wedding, you hire a photographer. And I didn't want to hire a photographer because I didn't want anyone to take pictures. I hated the way I looked. I hated having my picture taken. I hated being in my physical self. So by that time I had a PhD. I had 2 master's degree, a PhD. I had a very vibrant consulting business. I was on several for-profit boards of directors and nonprofits. I was deeply engaged in like really meaningful, strategic, political work. I was traveling around the country, and I was living here.
Yes.
And she wanted a photographer, and I didn't want to have my picture taken on my wedding. And my little kids were so excited that there was going to be a wedding. I mean, they were 3 and 6 or something like that. I mean, they were like, love a wedding. And who gets to go to your mom's wedding? And I have a big, gorgeous family, and 220 people came, cousins from all over. My 80-year-old aunts and uncles were there. I was 38 years old. I was dealing with some knee pain from being overweight, and I had a tear in a meniscus or something in my knee, and I had it fixed, and yet I was still dealing with a lot of pain. I went back to the surgeon and I was complaining about the ongoing pain, and he was like, "You're overweight. I can't do much more for you." I was 228 pounds, which in a 5'10" frame isn't terrible,
Sure.
but
Yeah.
today I weigh 100 and probably 48 pounds, just to give you like perspective. 80 pounds different. And we were driving back from a family meeting in Wisconsin. My knee was throbbing. I couldn't drive because I had to elevate it in the car. I was just miserable, feeling horrible in my skin. And the next morning I went to a Weight Watchers meeting. That was really the moment. Now, please, it wasn't about Weight Watchers. Why did I go to Weight Watchers? Because I grew up with a mother who was always going to Weight Watchers meetings. So, and that's what people did in whatever that year was. 2011 was 14 years ago. But I had decided I wasn't going to live this way anymore. I also didn't really ever think I was going to live past 40, and I was getting close to 40, and I was starting to realize I was going to probably live past 40, and I didn't like the way I was living. So it was kind of a confluence of events, but it was really the upcoming wedding that made me really shift, and that awareness of how sad it was that I didn't want to have pictures taken. I lost 80 pounds, and it wasn't really about the weight loss. I mean, it was at the beginning.
Yes.
But what I did is I started to tune in to myself. A little bit of weight loss made me feel a little bit better, and I started to want to move more. I started getting real curious about how movement made me feel. And then I started being curious about how different foods made me feel. And soon enough, I didn't eat sugar anymore. And then quickly I stopped eating dairy. And then not long after that, I cut out gluten, and I had started to identify all the inflammation in my body. I started to really feel the inflammation, and I started to see where it was coming from. And I started to fall more and more deeply in love with myself as I started caring for myself and really tuning in. And I think that was sort of the beginning. And it became this cascading effect of successive opportunities to just tune in to me. It was very scary to tune into myself when I was sick.
Yeah.
It was also kind of scary to tune into myself when I was a little person, because I was very focused on other people and my role in being a caretaker, being a good girl, being the kid who never caused any trouble. It was very other focused in my life. I was very much a parentified child. I had a lot of responsibility. I thrived on that. I loved all the praise I got for being so efficient and so productive and so smart and so helpful and so quiet and never causing trouble. And,
Yeah. Our generation, please be quiet. Just go do your work and be quiet. Yeah.
So I started to just, meet myself again, almost like I needed to do when I was 20, but couldn't.
Yeah.
And I started to really explore all those things and like what made me feel good. I was afraid to feel good, because I thought it was going to be taken away from me.
Exactly.
I felt pretty good prior to getting cancer. I was taking really good care of myself. I was dating somebody. I was having fun in school. I was kind of starting to spread my wings a little, and I felt like they were clipped.
Yeah.
So it was hard for me to unfold them again. And I think that analogy is kind of interesting, because one of the things I struggle the most with is my shoulder blades are like locked down from all the radiation, but it was also, I just locked everything down. And I started to try to unfold.
That makes sense. And that moment when you do, it's almost as if the world all of a sudden shifts and you're like, whoa, you see things completely differently. And you now have talked about that a lot in your podcast as well, about mindset and growth and all of that. Because once you get a taste of it, whether it's the foods you're stopped eating and just the self-awareness piece, like for me, I stopped drinking back in 2018. And it was like the lights came on and creativity went up, and motivation went up. And before that had done the same things, like realizing I was sick of the health issues I was having. And I said, I'm done. And started to examine, okay, what's the root cause of all this? And I realized, it's your diet, idiot. You're eating absolutely horrible. Same thing, sugar, the gluten, the dairy, all the things. And I started to pay attention to those. And that's what started me off on my journey. So I understand that completely. Just like, oh, wait. And you just start to listen to your own body.
Yeah.
And when you live in your head, you don't do that. And so when you start to bring the body into it, it changes everything. I feel like the world just opens up and you understand things in a completely different way. And then once you know things, you can't go back to the way, because now you know what life is like on the other side. So your wellness journey started from there. And I know from watching you now that you've got a lot of wonderful routines that you do. I want to get into that a little bit too, is how that shifted for you and what's your daily routine now? Like, I know you love working out and all the things. So share how that evolved into what you do daily now.
Well, I mean, from the very beginning, I started to fall in love with moving again. I struggled with movement. I was really stuck. So I think like when we're metaphorically stuck, I was stuck in my mind. I was stuck in a survivor mentality. I was stuck in a lot of ways. And it translated like kind of to everything. And once I started moving, it started to kind of unlock all kinds of things.
Yes.
And I started to find an enormous amount of joy in my physical self. I started weightlifting that year.
Yeah.
And I've never stopped. And when I was a kid, I was really praised for being super smart and quite intellectual and really, really good in school. I wasn't really encouraged to be an athlete. And that wasn't really because I was a girl. It was more because we lived far out in the country and it was really super inconvenient for my parents. And I mean, even let's just be honest, in the 80s, there were opportunities for girls to be athletes, but it wasn't as like total mainstream as it is now. And I lived in an area where, I mean, things were just sort of a little bit behind. And I started to discover how much I love to move, how strong I am, how great my hand-eye coordination is, how many things I could do. And so movement became this source of incredible joy. I didn't have to try hard to get to the gym in the morning. It was not something that I had to be like, oh, now I need to go work out. I wanted to be there. And I didn't have to encourage myself to push harder because that was already in me. I mean, I did a PhD. I finished Northwestern in 4 years. I never dropped a class. I had straight A's the quarter that I had cancer. All of my kind of innate characteristics that I love about myself thrived in that physical world too. So movement is a huge part of my routine. You know, I get up, I move every morning. Usually it's heavy lifting mixed with some high intensity cardio for brief spurts to keep my heart rate up. I'm really proud that I turned 53 on May 22nd and I did my first pull up.
Oh, yes, I saw that. That's wonderful. Yeah, that's huge.
I mean, I'm 5'10" and I am all legs. And I just want to say for all the women out there, I hear you. It's not easy. I mean, I'm not built like a gymnast. Okay.
Yeah.
And dragging those legs off the ground with my arms was a whole thing. And I worked for several months to get a pull up in. And I was like ecstatic. So movement, my eating. I have been paleo for 15 years. I eat so little sugar that if you hung with me for a week, you would probably not see me consume a gram. Not because I have some like weird fear of sugar. It makes me feel like crap.
Exactly.
You know, if I eat sugar, my knees hurt. If my knees hurt, I can't squat as deep. And I love a deep squat because when I feel strong in my legs, I feel like I can do anything. So my diet became very clean. I started cooking all the food I ate. I started growing a lot of the food I eat. I started breathing differently. When you're struggling in sort of a fight or flight space for a long time, I mean, you're breathing just here, right? Well, I don't know that I breathed into my belly for years. I started breathing differently, you know? I started really thinking about my sleep. I started thinking about what time I eat dinner, how it affects my sleep. Stop drinking not because I had a problem with alcohol, but because alcohol had a problem with me. It just didn't make me feel good. Alcohol is sugar. And guess what? It's also poison. I came to terms with there are no health benefits.
That's right.
I started to really think about how I was allowing stress to control me.
Yeah.
And how I was really more reactionary in my life and less creative. I was reacting to things constantly, and I had a lot of things to react to. I mean, we adopted 3 kids, and one of them has really severe health issues, created a lot of stress, a lot of strain, a lot of crisis. But even in those moments, we have choices for how we respond to the things that are happening in our lives. And I didn't feel like I had a choice. And so I was just very much knee-jerk reaction in the world. All of those things became part of this toolkit that I live with. It's part of my daily routine. So I think about it this way. I talk about like my stress kit on season 2 of the podcast, but what is it? It's how I eat, how I sleep, how I think, how I move, how I breathe, and how I connect. I'm very intentional about all of those things. And I also made this big shift, huge awareness that the best way to love the people you really love is to take care of yourself.
That's right.
And I started to put myself first. I started to really prioritize my own needs. I wanted my children to see me caring for myself because I knew that was the best way they would learn to care for themselves.
That's right.
And I started to do it unapologetically. And, all of that just kind of cascaded into this beautiful, crazy amount of joy and pleasure that I feel like on a daily basis. And this life that feels really abundant.
Yeah.
For the longest time, I lived in very much a scarcity kind of mindset, like I only had, everything was finite.
Yeah.
In my family, there was only a certain amount of love to go around and you had to compete for it by being good. Then I felt like I was going to die. So time was scarce. Those two things created a lot of anxiety in me, always living as if there wasn't enough love and there wasn't enough time. And I started to really shift that that one shifted really in the last probably 2 years where that mindset piece really came together for me. And now I feel like it's more important than any of the other ones. I look at every day as an opportunity to choose everything that's going to happen, the good and the bad. I'm going to choose it. I'm not just going to choose it. I'm going to love it. I'm going to love every moment as a chance to be my best, freest, wholest self.
Yeah.
So when my son is in the hospital on a morphine drip because he's having a sickle cell pain crisis, I am choosing those moments and I'm loving all of them. And I am finding all the opportunities in every one of those moments to love on the fact that I can care for him, right? Love on any little thing. And that shift, I think, honestly, I feel invincible.
I love that.
I've never felt so alive.
Yeah.
I've never felt so sexy. I've never felt so whole. I've never experienced so much joy. And if anybody listened, they're probably like, what is she on? Well, you know what? Today so far, I've had some coffee, some almonds, some fruit, and a lot of water.
Yes.
I had a great morning. I've had an amazing morning. This morning I was invited to a friend's house. I'm going to digress just like a tiny bit. I was invited to a friend's house who is a mentor to a young woman, 29-year-old woman who 4 years ago fled Afghanistan when the United States pulled the troops out and the Taliban took over. Her mother was a leading deputy in the government and they had to flee because her mother was going to be killed.
Sure.
And she would have been killed alongside of her and her sisters. So they fled. I had a chance to spend an hour and a half with her hearing her story this morning. She's a student at the University of Vermont studying business and has a dream of starting a nonprofit to help Afghan women. And I sat with her and I thought to myself, how could I not be so fucking in love with my life?
Yeah.
Shame on me if anything happens today that I don't embrace. Because everything that's going to happen to me today, I can handle.
Yeah.
If this woman can flee Afghanistan, and by the way, her mother is stuck in Pakistan. She's got a sister in Turkey, and she has 2 other sisters in Iran. Okay. And they can't leave and they can't work and they can't leave the homes they're staying in. And she's working 3 jobs so she can send money to them and putting herself through school. And she has a dream of starting a nonprofit. Shame on me if today anything happens that I complain about.
Yeah. Right.
Every day presents us with these opportunities to just think about how lucky we are, even if it's you can take a deep breath.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
And that is truly the way I walk around most days. This isn't bullshit.
I love that. And that's why I think that comes through on your podcast for sure. And that's probably why I gravitated towards you, because I could feel that energy through the podcast. And I know that the story I initially listened to was a hard one, but as you get through it, you're still saying it with hey, I'm going through these things and I'm here now and I've learned lessons. And, you've even covered this subject. You could have been bitter the rest of your life, and you could have been pissed at your parents for the rest of your life. You could have been pissed at all the things that happened to you. But
no one would have faulted me for it, right?
No, you had every excuse
Everyone
to do
would have
it.
said, of course you're bitter. Of course you're angry. You have every right to be. Yeah,
that's right.
I might have a right to be, but guess what? I'm not going to be.
That's right. And now you're looking at everything with this very clear vision, and you have such an insightful look into yourself. Why isn't it like, let's wrap this day in joy and done. Like, that's it. How can I approach the day this way? And we can easily just follow the patterns we were taught growing up, that we were shown, what we saw our parents model, all of that. And I'm the same as you. I think if nothing else, modeling that for the kids is so, so important to break that cycle, to break that shift, and to let them see what a self-actualized and aware and healthy and emotionally mature person looks like. And that's what we should all be, I believe, striving for. That's the goal I think at the end of the day, is to have that kind of joy.
I just want my kids to see joy.
Yes. Yes.
You know, I mean, their path will be their path, right? And they're going to have their own hard things. And I mean, they already have, my God. I've got kids who've had some really hard things, more hard things than you would expect. But I want them to see my joy. And they are. And they do. They see it. They experience it. They feel it. And I want them to know that abundance is a choice they can make. And each one of them has a story where there's a choice point there. And I want them to know it is their birthright to choose abundance. They don't have to allow anything to obstruct that.
Yeah. And to try and combat that, because it comes at them daily through social media and in the news and everything else. Like, you need more things. You're not living this life. So scarcity is constantly, it's this fear of you don't have enough things. So we have to constantly show like we have enough. This is fine. And to try and somehow get that to come from the inside rather than trying to gain that from whatever they think is out there that they need to try and get.
It was very confusing for me growing up because I grew up in a very, very middle-class family, and we never wanted for anything. I grew up in a family that had a very successful business. When I was a kid, it wasn't wildly successful, but in the context of my little town and my school, we were a very successful family, and we had all the things, but there wasn't a lot of joy. There wasn't a lot of trust. There wasn't a lot of ease and things. In the absence of those things, trust, safety, ease, rest, unbridled joy, things mean very little, but our world has sent a message that things are everything.
That's right.
So if you have all the things, you should be happy. And so I spent a lot of time wondering and feeling bad about myself for not feeling joy because I had the things. And I got a lot of shit for that. Like, can't you just be grateful? And, you know, the bottom line is that, like, I didn't need a car as much as I needed to trust myself. And I didn't know how to trust myself because I didn't grow up around people who did. I mean, the great education was fantastic, but it didn't substitute for being able to feel okay being joyful and not be viewed as selfish for wanting to be happy. I mean, it was a real big mind fuck. You know, because I kept trying to say to myself, but you should be happy because you have an education. You should be happy because you have no student loans. And then ultimately it was, you should be happy because this business took off and you got a backstop and you inherited some money. Like, you should. And finally I just sat with, I'm not. I'm just not. And it wasn't until I was let myself sit in the I'm not. I am angry. I am sad. I am resentful. Those are parts of me too. And I just looked at them and I let them be. That I found this incredible amount of peace. And then here's what happens. Joy erupts. Because I stopped fighting with all the hard feelings and I just let them be. And then you know what? It was a lot easier to move. And it was more fun to eat healthy food, take care of my body. I didn't need to drink ever, because I wasn't trying to numb out. I didn't need to scroll on social media because I wasn't looking for a distraction. I was
you loved your life.
I love my life.
I
just got divorced a second time, and God, it was, you know, what a bummer, huh? 2 divorces. You know what? I chose to love that too. I chose to love every moment of that and see what it could show me and what I could learn. That choice we can make to love all the things about our lives is a really powerful one. And I'm sure there are people listening that are thinking, you have got to be on crack, lady, because like, I don't want to love this stuff. But One of the things I try to communicate really clearly in the podcast is, you know what? Shit's going to happen, right?
Yeah.
Your parents are going to die. You're going to get divorced. A kid's going to get sick. You know, your best friend's going to not be your best friend anymore. You know, maybe
Sure.
you lose your house. Shit's going to happen. None of us get away unscathed. So you don't get to choose that, but you get to choose how you handle it, face it, interact with it, live with it, embrace it. And that's where the power is. And that's where the freedom is.
Yeah. It's choosing versus the knee-jerk reaction. I'm wondering if with your divorces and some things that happened to you, but there's a point where your body tells you, or like you can no longer ignore what's not feeling good anymore. Like you get to a point, you can push it away whatever way that you want to, whether it's the scrolling, the drinking, overeating, whatever the thing is. But eventually your body's going to tell you you're not in alignment with what's really going on inside of you.
Yep.
And did you feel those in those moments too? Is that's what helped you make the choices that you made because you feel out of alignment? Is that part of it for you? Because I feel like alignment is such a huge, you know, it's like it's the red flag that's finally waving and you got to figure this out and your body tells you. But alignment for me is my body lets me know, and physically, mentally, like anxiety. I never really had a lot of anxiety. And then all of a sudden I'm anxious about something. I'm like, okay, let's pay attention to that. Like what's going on there?
I felt so much discontent.
Yeah.
I felt so dysregulated. I felt so at the whim. I would have moments where I felt so strong and stable and solid, and it would vanish so quickly. Almost like someone pulled the rug out from under me. But then I started to wonder, like, no one pulled the rug. So what happened? Of course, for a long time, it was like, it's his fault, it's her fault, it's their fault, it's this fault. And then I started to see like, no, it's really my fault because I'm allowing all of it. My friend Peter Crone, I got to give him serious props. I worked with Peter for 8 months and it was all mindset coaching. And he wasn't afraid to be like, yeah, this really sucks. And you're choosing to let it suck. You're choosing to let it control you.
Yeah.
Because you're reacting. It wasn't until I got really clear that all of this was my choice.
Yeah.
And that's a hard thing. I always say to people, if you want to have a really great accountability coach, launch a podcast, because every week you probably have had this experience. Every week I'd release these episodes where I'd be talking about things that I believed in or sharing somebody else's story of transformation. I'd have to listen back. And then I'd be like, God damn, I got to walk this talk now. Now I got to do what I said I was going to do. Yeah. I had said I was going to be my most authentic self, and the world would say, and what happened yesterday?
Yeah.
It was fantastic. It kept me honest. Yeah. And I had 2 seasons of content to keep me honest. And that's a lot of time to practice. Sure. And I started to recognize how incredibly free I felt when I just embraced it all.
How long has it been since you've been divorced the second time? It's fairly recent, right?
Yeah, it's fairly recent. Yeah.
What's been the biggest thing you've noticed since this last divorce? Like the biggest change in you?
I really believed that love meant self-sacrifice. Mm-hmm. And I believed that I was a person who never gave up and couldn't give up because that would be a sign of failure.
Sure.
And I gave up and I stopped sacrificing myself. And I learned that failure was okay, that mistakes are inevitable. I cut myself some slack. I gave myself some grace. I allowed myself to just see that marriage was, it was a 9-year marriage. So it wasn't like, it wasn't a flash in the pan. It was a 10-year relationship, a 9-year marriage. I allowed myself to see that was okay. That was good enough. Mm-hmm. And I could just be good enough. I could take a C on this one. Yeah. I also let myself truly live into the reality that if you want to attract what you like, if you want the things that you want, right? And you expect them to show up in your life, you've got to create some space for them. Yeah. And the only way to get the things that you think align are to let go of the things that don't. Yes. And the two don't happen simultaneously. And I was very afraid of the letting go because I didn't know what was waiting for me. And the in between, the void was terrifying.
I bet.
The nothingness. Yeah. Who am I if I'm not a partner? Yeah. Who am I if I'm not a wife? Am I gay? Am I straight? Am I bi? Am I this? Am I that? Yeah. All those labels that we try to define ourselves so that we have this like certainty. Mm-hmm. I had to learn to live without all of that certainty again. Okay.
Yeah.
I was given the chance to learn about it when I was 20 and I thought I was going to die. Hard time to learn about it. I embraced what I could. This last divorce was a chance to really buckle down and get really real with myself on all the things that I needed to really face. And one of them was that I was terrified of uncertainty.
Yeah.
And yet, if you're going to get really real about it, life is uncertain.
Yeah.
I mean, I might die going home today from my office.
Yeah. I know.
So I think what this last divorce offered me was a chance to loosen my grip on just about everything. And let me tell you, I was holding on tight.
Yeah.
And it's amazing how all of a sudden, how when you loosen the grip, everything just sort of lets go and you start to flow. I feel incredible.
Yeah.
I do. I mean, energetically, relationship wise, the way I connect with my friends, my children, the way I think about my life, my career, my work, all of it just has just started to flow again as I have let go.
Yeah.
That's a very long-winded answer. I'm sorry. All my answers
totally.
are long-winded because some of this is like, you're asking me questions that some of them I'm like, I haven't thought about that one. Now I got to really, try to put them together for you. But I think that's probably the lesson.
Yeah. I love that. I love that for you because I can only imagine because you've been probably a tight gripper since you were little, right? Like
if I potty trained myself at 10, we can assume that I was kind of wound tight,
Yes.
I mean,
so
good
finally
grief.
and then to get to your 50s and finally feel that freedom within yourself. And I think that's all that we want. I think really, truly, when it comes down to it, we all want to feel free in our choices, the direction we go in our life. I had a friend not too long ago talk about autonomy and how when you're in a partnership for a long time or you're a parent, whatever, you tend to give up that autonomy because you're supposed to. You're supposed to compromise and be part of something and to realize, wait, that was a load of crap. Hold on.
Yeah.
And for myself, I keep trying to picture, this came to me, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago. It was, okay, if I was not married, I've been married for, it'll be 30 years in a couple of years. If I was not married and I was on my own, even no kids, the whole deal, what would I be doing right now? What would be my choices?
Yeah.
And why do having children, I mean, sure, there's some, obviously, you got to take care of your kids. You can't do all the things you want to do, but what would I be doing? What choices would I make? And why am I allowing a marriage or kids or, my kids are gone now. Why am I allowing that to dictate my daily choices? Yeah. And so it's a big light bulb.
If the choice is freedom, there's a lot of ways to get to that path. And you can find freedom in constraints. You can find freedom in anything. I guess that's one thing I've learned. I can feel free in a lot of really hairy situations that are full of constraints and a real predicament. Sitting by my son's bedside Memorial Day weekend while he is on a morphine drip having a sickle cell pain crisis, and we're not sure how we're going to get this pain under control. He's, developing acute chest, which is basically pneumonia, and he can hardly breathe and his oxygen levels are plummeting.
Yeah.
And I feel free. I mean, I could cry if I keep talking about that because
I know
the joy I feel in that reality, that even that situation, and I was in it with him and I was caring for him. Please, I was not checked out at all. I was more present than I've probably ever been. But it's because I knew that whatever happened, any possible outcome, that I would be okay.
Yeah.
It is the source of freedom. And that reality, knowing that and trusting that and believing that that's who I am and that is what the universe is, call it God, call it higher power, whatever it is, that is looking out for me, that I will be okay. Even through the shitty divorce, even with the sick kid, even with my dad dying, you know what I mean? Like, I'm going to be okay. I think if I walk around looking like I'm just so happy, it's because I finally believe to the very depth of my core that I'm going to be okay. I'm okay. And that kind of level of trust in the universe is, I just think, one of the most amazing things a person can have in life.
Yeah. And I see that was like, you're also trusting yourself. Like you're trusting the universe and yourself. Like that's huge to be able to trust yourself.
I personally, Sarah Schmidt, can be okay and can handle anything that comes my way.
Yeah.
I believe that with the absolute certainty.
Yeah.
that I say it with. It's what I wish for every human.
Yes, yes. To get to that point, to learn how to do that, you have to have self-love, and you have to get past all the dumb stories you tell yourself about, who you are, and the limiting beliefs, and what the world tells you who you are as well. There's all of this you have to fight against.
Well, I mean, that's a whole nother podcast, because I'm assuming that a lot of your listeners are women, and we are taught from such a young age to step outside ourselves and look with this very critical eye, inspecting ourselves and what we need to fix and change and cover up, slim down, trim back, all that stuff.
Yeah.
But we are taught to objectify ourselves and live outside of ourselves from a very, very young age. And I think a lot of what midlife is climbing back in.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate. I mean, I hope to God my daughter doesn't have the same experience, and it takes her a lot less time. Yeah. But we talk about how women in their 50s find so much joy and happiness and enjoy sex so much more and all the things. Well, maybe it's because we finally learn how to get back in our own skin.
Yeah. Yep.
Maybe we finally figure out that being in our bodies and being present and being aware and being alive and being joyful is like a really okay thing.
Yeah.
I want it to happen sooner for people.
Yes, exactly.
But you know what? It's going to happen the way it's going to happen, because we're all on our own journey, right? Let's embrace the journey. Let's support each other in the journey. Let's stop comparing your journey to mine. Let's be a little more graceful with each other. Let's give each other the benefit of the doubt. Let's let people make mistakes.
You said something earlier about friendships. And I think this is a huge piece too of our age, as well as the community we have around us, especially as we go through hard things, like who we have to support us. Do you feel like you've had a great support system all throughout this? Like, if you've got a solid friend group, or have you gone through some tough times where you feel isolated and alone, and how have you navigated that, if you have?
The first half of my life, friendships were really challenging. I think because I was so uncomfortable in my own skin, so uncomfortable with myself, it's very hard to be a good friend. And I didn't really struggle to sustain relationships, but I just let them go. I didn't have a lot of value in myself. I mean, it just was hard. It was hard.
Yeah.
I also grew up in a small town. I felt like a fish out of water. I mean, there was a lot of things.
Yeah.
A lot of things. But I think in the last couple decades, certainly in the last decade, I've come to really love myself. My relationships have deepened and broadened. I have a very small circle. I mean, really, how many friends do we need? I need about 3.
Yeah.
And I've got them. I have a few more than that, actually. And I've got them. And when you don't trust yourself, it's very hard to lean on others. And a friendship where you don't believe you can lean on anybody, and you don't believe anybody can help you, and you got to do it all yourself, is really not a great friendship.
Yeah.
And I didn't feel like it was safe to lean. I couldn't lean on my parents when I thought I was dying. So it made it really hard for me to lean on friends when little things were happening.
Yeah.
Right. So I've had to learn how to let myself need support. I've had to learn how to need other people. I was terrible at letting people in when I was hurting.
Sure.
And you know what? That's not a gift to your friends.
Yeah.
We think that we're saving people from our struggles. It's not.
Yeah.
We all need to be needed. It's like how we started the conversation, how great it felt to be invited and chosen.
Yeah.
I wasn't choosing me. How could I choose others? I still have a little ways to go on this one.
Yeah.
I still fall back into bad habits where I feel like I'm a burden when I have a crisis or a problem and I need to reach out to somebody. My friends continually remind me that that's bullshit and I should let it go. Maybe that's the work I'll do in these next couple years. Make it a goal for 55, right? We got to have goals.
That's right.
I like goals. Yeah. But for me, the reciprocity, the true reciprocity, the authentic reciprocity that friendship offers is one of the most beautiful things. And I'm still learning. I'm still allowing. I'm still opening myself up to maybe it's just greater depths of that.
Yeah.
Podcast has really helped because I put a lot of stuff out there in the world and my friends were like, wow.
Yeah. Holy shit.
So
Holy Schmidt.
I rarely have frivolous conversation with people because if they're listening to the podcast, they've got some very deep and pithy thought in their heads, that they heard me say. Kind of great. I mean, I know most of my conversations go from 0 to 60 pretty quickly.
I love it. That's how I like to operate, honestly. I don't have time for small talk, nor do I want it. Speaking of the podcast, I wanted to know what was the impetus behind you starting the podcast? Why did you want to get out there and share all this stuff about yourself?
I was turning 50 and I was feeling a lot of discontent. We were just coming out of COVID. I had a kid, my littlest one, who's
Mm-hmm.
8.5 now, was going to kindergarten. I started to find a little bit of time on my hands. I thought I would start a new business. I hired a coach to help me try to figure that out. She took me on a journey that I didn't expect. We did a lot of work around internal family systems. And as I really got serious about coming to terms with loving my parts, I found a voice that I kind of knew I had, but it started to speak very clearly.
Yeah.
And I knew I wanted to start a podcast. It just kind of emerged and erupted and bloomed out of me. And now we're getting ready to record our 3rd season. And it's become such a source of joy. It's a little bit more than a side project. I do a lot of other things still too. I'm a psychologist, a health coach. I do a lot of mindset work. I do a lot of investing, and I'm very committed to some very significant philanthropy that, around equity, diversity, inclusion. And the podcast is just this all-encompassing thing that kind of holds it all.
Yeah.
And I feel very strongly that as women, we need to kind of speak our truth and find places where we can encourage other women to do the same thing and support women who are on their journey and to being our most authentic selves. And so I feel very called to model that in the world in the hopes that not only do other people feel like they can be their most authentic selves, but we might start a conversation about that and feel more connected to each other in the real stuff that's happening in our lives, the Wholey Schmidt moments.
I love that.
I felt alone through a lot of mine.
Mm-hmm.
I hope that my podcast helps people feel less alone in theirs.
Absolutely. I'm the same. Same. Well, I want to wrap this up, but the last question I'm going to ask you, one more small thing is what I always finish with is, what is one thing right now that's helping you feel awake, well, and empowered?
Great sex.
Ooh, I haven't had that answer yet. Nice work. Good job. High five.
Yeah. High five.
I love it. At 53, isn't that freaking awesome?
53.
Yeah.
Best sex I've ever had, actually. Okay, I don't mean to be like salacious, but I'm just going to say that I think when we choose abundance, we got to choose it in all facets of our life. If you want to be your most authentic self and find joy and pleasure, you've got to unlock it in every way, shape, and form. You can't hold yourself back. And so this year has been an exercise in me looking at where are the places I'm holding myself back. And pleasure, allowing myself feel deep, incredible pleasure. I didn't feel like I deserved it. And I feel like I deserve it. And I'm experiencing it, not just with sex. In all kinds of ways. I mean, food tastes better,
Yeah.
My coffee tastes better. All the things. Sunsets are more beautiful. But I think as women, we need to give ourselves permission to find that pleasure in our bodies. Men do.
Yeah. Yes.
This beautiful body of yours was not just meant to bake babies. It's a source of joy and pleasure. So get after it.
I love that. Awesome. Love that answer.
That's going to make the cut.
No, it will make the cut. We're putting that in there for sure. Oh my gosh. I have been so happy to have this conversation. I love that we let it go organic, to let it go wherever it needed to go. And I think it went exactly where it needed to go. So
thank you. I'm going to tell you, I said things I've never said anywhere else.
Oh, good.
So that's you
what
go.
I wanted. Yeah, perfect. So I'm so glad
great.
You did that. Awesome.
Thank you. What a great interviewer.
Well,
and
thank you.
You created a very safe, compelling space. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Sarah. Okay. Talk to you later. Bye, honey. Thanks so much for listening. I hope you found this episode either helpful, inspiring, entertaining, or just made you feel less alone, or maybe all of those things. If so, I'd love it if you'd share this episode with a friend, as well as on your social media. And if I dare ask for more, to rate and review the podcast on your favorite platform, especially Apple Podcasts and Spotify. You see, the more reviews we have, the more people we can reach, and the bigger the Odd Life community can become. You guys are the best. I can't wait to chat again next week, so we'll see you then.